Hello and welcome to the October edition of the Kushmerek Connection. We're filming today in the FATV studios in the Workers Credit Union studio, and joining me today, I think no stranger to FATV, no stranger to the city of Fitchburg and the 3rd Worcester District, former Senator Jen Flanagan. Jen, thanks for being on here.
It's great to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. I mean, you were, I think you were in office as I was that college student, you know, kind of aspiring to public service, and I think you paved the way for a lot of folks who now serve in public office.
We were all young once.
Yeah, still young, still young.
Young at heart.
Yeah, and congratulations, just recently married, and
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was last weekend. We had a good time. It was a fun couple of days. The weather held out, so thank God for that. And
fall weddings, you never sure.
Back to life. Yes.
So, Jen, no stranger to your way around the State House and public service, but for folks who maybe are new to North Central, or folks that maybe previously just weren't, clued into the local political arena, can you talk a little bit about the outset of your public career and then your transition into elected office?
Yeah. So I always say that my career was a fluke. It was never intended, is what I should say to people, is that I started out back in 1995 as an intern to Representative Simmons, who used to represent the 4th Worcester District in Leominster, and there was a turning point during my internship where she said, you can either be my new aide or train my new aide. So at the ripe age of 20, I became a legislative aide to a state rep and thought it was like one of the greatest things. I got to work on so many issues. We had just the city of Leominster. I was able to work for my hometown. And I was her chief of staff until 2004 when she passed away. She passed away in August of Crohn's disease. But a little bit prior to that, we knew she wasn't going to run again, and she tricked me into running. I'm not going to lie. There were some tense days when I figured out I was running for office because I'd never intended to. One, as you know, I don't have a filter. I am not meant to be that person that has to curb what they say. But I also wasn't ready to give up my public service, and so I ran for 2 terms in the House and represented the 4th Worcester District, and then Senator Antonioni came to me and said, I'm leaving office, I'd like you to consider running for the Senate. And I really thought I was going to lose that race and just go back into working in mental health and live my life. Well, I won that in subsequent elections, so I spent from 2009 to 2017 in the state Senate, which was one of the greatest jobs that anyone can ever have. And then in 2017, Governor Baker called and had asked me to be one of the 5 inaugural cannabis commissioners to stand up the new agency and to really to legalize cannabis because it had passed in the ballot question. So I took the public health seat, and I was the public health appointee, and I did I had a 4-year term, and I did close to 4 years, and then realized that the work that we had done was important and it was strong, but it was time for someone else to take a look at what we did. And now I'm the director of the regulatory policy at the law firm of Vicente Cederberg. So I get to input my public health comments, I get to input my public life comments into things. I get to give a different perspective, I think, than a lot of people who have been in the private sector. But again, there was never a path. I was just never intended to do any of this. It just kind of evolves, and you evolve with it. So I'm a big fan of internships.
That's the case with so many, though, right?
It is.
Nobody ever, or it's so rare that folks know that they are going to run for office. They just happen to find themselves in a situation where they are running. Right?
Yes, and I'll tell you, there were days that I cursed my boss when she was in the grave, and I was like, what did you do to me? But at the end of the day, I think, my mantra has always been people, not politics. Yeah. And so I always used to say, and I still say it, politics is the game you play, public service is the job you do. You can run a campaign, you can play, as clean or dirty as the next guy, but at the end of the day, you're helping people in your district with issues that they can't solve. Right. Whether it be mass health or child support or transportation issues or early education access or trying to get into college. There are things that come natural to us that don't come natural to other people. And so I think for me, it's just really giving back to your community and giving back to the people in the towns that you live and grew up in. I don't know.
No, I think you and I have certainly talked about it before. I got to see your constituent service work, firsthand, and it was ultimately the experience that really inspired me and said, I'm going to run. And I wasn't sure when, I didn't know for what, but I knew that was the moment, and it was that, you know, the ER boarding crisis. You know, I think we talk about it often, and how it ravages our communities, but you know, folks who need a mental health bed who can't find one, who are forced to wait in an emergency room, and it sounded so vague, and it didn't sound like a personal issue to me until, you know, my mother was in the ER and 7 days waiting for a bed, and an insurance company unwilling to pay for a bed that was available, and just seeing the bureaucracy there, and seeing, you know, an insurance company, you know, greed put before, and bottom line put before, you know, a loved one. That was a traumatic moment for me, and realizing that, you know, for all of my education, for all of my professional experience, and my wife's professional experience of being a caregiver, and we still felt so powerless in that moment of realizing, how do I help my mother?
Right.
She's agonizing in an ER bedroom. The ER doctor wants to help her. The nursing staff wants to help her, and there was no path forward. And I remember it's never this easy experience to be on the other end of that phone call. And so I always, that's always helped me to understand where a constituent is when they pick up that phone and call me. But I remember calling you, and it was the most uncomfortable thing of my life, having to air out my family's dirty laundry and say, I'm desperate and I'm powerless, I need help.
Right.
And I remember I called you over the weekend, and by Monday morning you would fix that. And I remember thinking that was, it was something I'll never forget. I'll continue to thank you every time I see you, and until the last time I see you. And you know, I remember how grateful my family was, but I remember what you did then too also inspired me of, you know, I was the city council president in Fitchburg, and it was still difficult for me to pick up the phone, and I still didn't know which way to turn and how to navigate a system. And my wife is a geriatric social worker, and between the two of us, the system seemed so unapproachable and so unnavigatable. And if we couldn't do it, how could the average constituent on the street who was going through this do it? And I remember, you know, thinking in that moment, this is when I need to step up.
And I think for me, though, the one thing is that I hate bureaucracy. You know, we can talk about mental health all day long, and we can talk about the difference between mental health and physical health, and should we band them together, and should they be treated the same? They're never going to be treated the same until they're billed differently under the billing code. And that's a bureaucratic process that nobody understands. That's not even those of us that have health insurance policies, people that work in the field. Until those billing codes mean less, people are not going to get the care they need. And I think for me, you know, especially when you called about your mom, and then the work that I did in putting people in detox for addiction issues, and it was like, no, get me the bed. This is a life on the line. This is something we have to do. I'm not taking no. You're going to find me something. And you know, some people would say I was a bully about it. Some people would, you know, appreciate it. But at the end of the day, until the bureaucratic process changes, there is no way to put mental health on par with physical health. And I think that we have to understand that the fight is not with, you know, society. It's with the process. And there's a reason why we have two different books of billing codes, right? Like you have your DSM, and you know, with your criteria, but then you also have the medical codes that we bill under. And I think that, you know, for any elected official, it's really difficult to find when your constituents are in pain, because nobody wants to make that call. And I always used to say to people who were nervous about calling us, I don't care about the Gold Dome. I don't care that it's a big building. Email me at 3 o'clock in the morning if that's what makes you feel better, because you know I'm not going to answer you. I'm not one of those 3 o'clock in the morning people. Email me at a time you think I won't respond, because then you'll have some time to let it sit, and we'll do our work. And it really comes down to constituent services. I mean, it's not about, you know, ballot questions and the national, you know, politics scene. It comes down to the people in your district. And I think the lower you are on the ballot, the closer you are to the district, the more it means when someone sees you and can just approach you. And for me, we were always very family friendly. If you couldn't bring your newborn or your elderly grandparent, then we weren't having events. And I come from a big Irish-Italian family, and, you know, short of having a lot of food all the time, we wanted everybody to feel as though they were a part of it. So
that's it. It's a family. It's a large family.
It is.
It's a district-wide family, but you're absolutely right. You know, and you know, so the times that people call our offices, it's because they've exhausted every other office and every other opportunity, we're the call of last resort, right?
Yep.
And so they're almost expecting the next tier of government to fail them too, just like all the other ones that they've tried.
I still get calls.
Oh, I'm sure.
I still get calls from people asking how to navigate and where to go and how to fix things, and especially in times of crisis. And COVID was no different. I got a lot of calls during COVID, and to me, you help them facilitate it, and you hope for the best. And sometimes it's hard when you don't know the outcome. Right. I mean, I will tell you, there's a lot of people that I put into detox that I don't know what happened to them, and that weighs on you. But I think for things like mental health and substance use disorder and disabilities and all of that, you just need to help people. I mean, you just need to be that conduit and do what you gotta do.
I know you're one of your previous aides in your office, Tilly Ryan, called me maybe within the first few months of being in office, and she had a constituent that had reached out to her, and it's people get used to reaching out to a certain contact, and I was always kind of touched that she reached out right away and said, all right, let me help you navigate this too, by the way, because you're new.
But I'll tell you, having been the senator in North Central Mass, I had 8 representatives that comprised my district, and 2 were Republicans, and the 6 reps. And if it was one of us, it was 9 of us. Right. And I felt as though my job as a senator was to lift up my reps. And when I went into the communities, this was their district and their hometowns, because I had 10 and a half, and I had to divide my time between them. And I'm not sure that has ever been mimicked across the state, like it was here.
I think you really set that blueprint, and I think now we find ourselves really trying to build back that same blueprint and get back to doing exactly that. And I noticed that other delegations will often say, "What do you mean regional delegation? You meet as a group?"
Yeah.
We meet every month as a group, all 9 of us, and we get together and make sure we're on the same page about everything.
And I got that from Senator Antonioni. Like, I didn't come up with that on my own. As an aide, as a rep, I came in under Bob's umbrella, and I really think that we were very productive. We were very successful. We got the train done. We got the Wachusett station. We got Fitchburg got done. They knew we wanted a shorter commute. We had the longest commute. It took 15 years to work on that issue, and if it wasn't all of us, including some other reps that were helpful along the way, I'm not sure we would have been successful. We got a lot of transportation work done. We had a lot of healthcare work done, and it really takes an effort of everybody. And I think the senator has an opportunity to foster that relationship. And North Central is just a special place to be. There's nothing like it. I don't know.
We collaborate. I think we know the needs of our region so distinctly well, and I think we collaborate better than any other region. And there is this sense of if we don't do it, if we're not here to advocate for ourselves, there's nobody else who will advocate for us.
Yeah.
Right?
And you don't hold grudges about party lines. Like, there's just no need. There's no need to do that. Everyone has a district. And
we're the only tripartisan delegation in the entire Commonwealth. So and I think we pride ourselves in that.
Yep.
Well, Jen Flanagan, thank you so much for coming in the studio, and thank you so much for coming on the show today.
No, it's great to see you. It's great to be here and to see the FATV team. And hopefully this election time will be very exciting for everybody.
I can't wait. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
I remember when.
Fitchburg was the smallest town in the area, but by 1835, it had grown to be the largest town. By 1840 and 50, most Fitchburg residents had become abolitionists. Another early industry in Fitchburg that still continues today is scythe making. Women used to have to spin yarn and weave cloth themselves, but now it was being made in factories, cutting down and exporting its wood to build cities up and down the East Coast, and of course, for making paper. Starting in the 1800s, the population becomes much more diverse. Fitchburg Machine Works expanded widely.
After World War II, Main Street was lively.
And we're back. Joining me now in studios, Theo Demosthenes. He's a Gear Up counselor, but I think so many in our community know him as a community super volunteer, a jack of all trades, somebody who really does just a lot of incredible acts of kindness in our community. And so Theo, I think there's a lot of people who are at home who know you and are like, oh, I see Theo all the time in the community or just on social media, just spreading the positive message through our community. But there's a lot of people who this will be their first occasion. Introduce yourself a little bit, would you?
So again, name's Theo Demosthenes, and thank you for having me on the show. I guess I really started getting involved in the community a little bit after college, actually more towards right when the pandemic started, because I started seeing there was a lot of things that, that needed to be done. And, normally I like to stay behind the scenes and not get involved. And, but, I decided, if not me, then who else?
Right.
So.
No, that's, I think that's the story of our community, of stepping up and answering a call, and whether it's in our school system or just our community and our nonprofit sectors, I think we're a city of folks that just looking for opportunities to give back. But I think you really embody that spirit of positivity and volunteerism. I've actually known you for a long time now. I can't believe it. So going back to when I was a recent graduate at Fitchburg State, just recently a young professional working at Fitchburg State as the alumni director. I got to know you and your brother David.
Yeah.
I remember initially I was really struck by, just two young kids at the time, like 18 and 20, who were, just so intertwined with the community and the student body at the same time. And I felt like you were really bringing the Fitchburg State community into the Fitchburg community. And I was really struck. So I'm curious how you've leveraged some of that student volunteerism and activities into what you've been working on in our community.
Well, I guess with Fitchburg State, when I started, I was just going to class, going home. And Fitchburg State was under construction at the time, so there wasn't really much to do.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get involved because I didn't really want to be there in the first place. I wanted to go to UMass Lowell to pursue music. But I think as the years, I think it was like my sophomore, junior year, I was roped into an a cappella club, which I eventually end up being one of the leaders of. And that just opened my eyes to, oh, there's more to life than just, going to school, going home. And that really just, put me on the map, because we had to fight to get that club to be recognized as an official club. And so I started seeing, the politics behind certain things at the school. And so started, I guess, getting more involved. I joined jazz band, I joined dance club, I did martial arts for like a little bit, and just really started realizing, there's more to life when you're life is all about making connections with people. That's right. And that helped me to, I guess, discover the type of person I was, the type of person I wanted to be, and the type of person I wanted others to see as well. And so that, I wanted, all of that, I guess, helped me when I saw those needs, it helped, I guess, how do I find the right words to say it? It helped me reach a point where I was like, you know what? I can do this. Yeah. Some people do I want to do this? Do I want to step back? And that's what I was on the fence. And then I think through those experiences, looking back at stuff that I've done in the past, I was like, you know what? I can do this. It's okay. Even if I fail miserably, it's all right. I can try.
Yeah, being willing to fail and then learn from those moments too, right?
Definitely.
Do I remember correctly? You and your family did a lot of mission work in Haiti,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Where you combined your love of music, you're kind of called to serve, and your faith all into kind of one experience, right?
Yeah. So my dad, he is a pastor of 2 churches, which is strange, but he makes it work. And we've helped build a clinic. We've helped build a school, as well as a couple of churches and houses for people in the Canaan region of Haiti. And so after the earthquake, a lot of people moved out to this area called Canaan. It was a mountain, and it was more like a desert. And so they just moved out, and there was nothing there. And so my dad, who was honestly my first example of what it means to be a true servant, and, to love your neighbor and to really go out there and to help them. He saw the need, and he was a visionary, decided to make this happen. I was like, all right, I guess we'll just go. And going there, taking, again, those lessons that I've learned in college as well to help me to be more bold, to be more willing to serve, looking for needs, looking to see what I can do to help, I guess, my fellow man. And so that, bringing that back, because Haiti is, once you go to Haiti, once you do a mission trip anywhere in a third world country, you will come back so much more with a deeper appreciation of what you have, and much more gratefulness and more of a, I guess, willingness to see, you know what, I actually do have it good. So what can I do to help those who don't have it as good as me? And so that mindset really helped shape, how I look at even my job as a Gear Up counselor.
So let's get into that. What is the role of a Gear Up counselor, and talk about your work in the public schools?
Right. So Gear Up stands for Gaining Early Awareness and Readiness for Undergraduate Programs. And so it's a federally funded program, 7-year grant program, and it's a very competitive grant that people have to apply to. And they're in 43 states servicing over 500,000 students. And their goal is to help a particular cohort of students across low-income schools graduate and either go to college, go to trade school, go to the military, perform any form of post-secondary education that they desire. And so my role is to basically do that. So we work with the class of 2024 and 2025, and we've been working with them since they were in 6th and 7th grade. And so what we would do is that we would provide in-class tutoring, out-of-class tutoring. We'd also do workshops on college and career readiness. Financial literacy will come in, bring career panelists to talk to the kids about careers they may be interested in. We take them on field trips to college, which they love, because everybody loves college food. And we also provide services and support to the teachers at the schools as well. So I remember, I think it was 2018 or 2019, we bought 500 Chromebooks for the city of Fitchburg for our cohort. And so anything that they need, a lot of supplies. We have our fearless leader, Mr. Rojas, and Mr. Chiricello, always working they'll bring in supplies, and they'll, like, Chromebooks, calculators, computers, I already said that, notebooks, anything that teachers might need to help them do their job better.
That's
and
fantastic.
So,
Breaking down barriers, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's and beyond just your role, and I know you take your position not just as a job. I know you treat it personally.
Yeah.
Fitchburg Public Schools today, and folks who haven't had a chance to interact with the schools, find a way to get involved. I mean, it's incredible to see the fabric of diversity in our Fitchburg Public School system. More than 70% of students at Fitchburg High today are students of color or first-generation Americans, or speak a language other than English as their first language. And it's incredible to see it as a melting pot, and to see the cohesion in our student body. And I think it's incredible that you as a young man of color are a shining example of just positivity and success in the school system. And I know you make it a personal mission of wanting to be able to reach out and say, come on, let's, here's how I can help you succeed. And if I can't help you succeed, I'll find somebody who can.
Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about, like, that importance for you, that personal importance that you have, and just trying to help inspire and empower those other young people around you.
Well, honestly, that started in college when I was doing a service learning project, and I ran into my former teachers, Peter Perry, who's still teaching at the high school, and he's been a tremendous mentor, and he's been actually my inspiration to go into education in the first place. He said, you were always helping kids, even when you're in my class. Like, when you were done with your work, you would go around seeing if kids need help. And I was like, wait, really?
Yeah.
And so I pursued a career in education because I wanted to show kids, especially low-income students, especially students of color, that there's more to life than what you see, because so often they fall through the cracks, when we talk about success stories and stuff like that. And when we look at discipline records, when we look at things, we see that students of color are disproportionately affected. And so I wanted to show them you can be successful despite what other people may say, what other people may think, how they may choose to write you off. And so Gear Up was the perfect role for this, because literally our job is to help them succeed. Yes. And push them towards the career that they choose. And so I take it personally because it's my passion, and because there were people who did that for me through my parents, through teachers, through mentors, through coworkers, through supervisors, and now I'm able to turn around and move it forward. And show
They don't have to look far to find a role model, right?
Hopefully. Hopefully.
So you spend a lot of time just giving back, empowering those around you. It's easy if you're looking on the news to find something to be cynical about or to find reasons for hopelessness or negativity. But I like to do the exact opposite. And so as somebody who spends so much time really trying to empower and lift up those around you, what gives you optimism when you talk about Fitchburg and when you talk about our young youths in the schools?
These kids are bold. If they don't like something, they will tell you. And if they're not, they see and they value authenticity as well. And so if they know you're not being real with them, if they know you're saying one thing but you're acting another way, they will call you on it. And they're also very passionate about what they believe in as well. And they're very vocal about it, even if it may not be in the most beneficial or helpful way in their end. And so what I think I really enjoy about it is that in a world where everybody's just like, yeah, what do we stand on? What do we believe in? Who's gonna, people aren't standing up. Right. We're seeing a lot of movement from the youth. They're standing up for what they believe in, they're passionate, and they're willing to fight for it. And so that's what I really enjoy. And so I guess my job would be also, how do I help them to see how to focus that energy to stand up for what they believe is right, to stand up for, and to make real change in their school, to make real change in their city, in the state, and in the country, and even in the world.
I love it. That's what we need right now. That's how we overcome that complacency, is next generation of bold thinkers and doers. And I'm excited knowing that there's individuals like you out there helping to guide them, lift them up, empower them, and give them a voice and a platform.
Well, I'm trying.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Theo, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I appreciate it.
To our viewers at home, thank you so much for tuning in to the October episode of the Kushmerek Connection. Joining us next episode, we'll have City Councilor Sally Cragen in her first term, as well as keeping with the Fitchburg High School theme. We'll have our new principal, Principal Jarrett, coming in studio as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to FATV and the Workers Credit Union Studios. We'll see you next month.